Oh, okay.
So what I'm saying is,
Along that.
Okay, Yvonne, are you ready?
I am indeed. Where's our recording and
That's yours. Okay. All right. It's 7 o'clock. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We're in the Sheridan City Hall Council chambers. Yeah, if everybody wants to turn on their mic. Yvonne, can you call roll?
Yes. George.
Here.
Buckles.
Present.
McElroy.
Here.
Hebert. Hodges.
Here.
Houston.
President.
Flynn.
Here. Okay. Yvonne, do we have any public comment?
I received none online, and I have not received any hard copies.
Okay. All right. Well, move on then to our first presentation. It's the City Manager Recruitment Services, Jensen Strategies. Erik Jensen is here. Did you, Yvonne, is there a PowerPoint too, or is it just this one?
It's just that, and I asked Erik if he would like me to put that up on the screen, but he said it's probably pretty good to just go ahead and follow along in that.
Okay. All right, well, welcome.
Did I turn this on?
That's perfect.
Yeah,
You got it on.
yeah.
Good. Okay. Yeah, technology's not my thing, so. Hi, I'm Erik Jensen. I'm the principal and founder of Jensen Strategies. We are a management consulting firm based in Portland. We do a number of things, but we do recruitments as part of our portfolio of services. We do recruitments of city managers and department heads and other government executive level positions. I believe you all have the proposal that we sent last week, and so what I was going to do tonight is just kind of walk through our process and then answer your questions with regard to what's important to you and how we could be of most assistance. So first of all, I'd like to just mention some of the things that make us different than other recruitment firms. To my knowledge, we run the most comprehensive recruitment process of any firm that I know of. And what that means by being the most comprehensive is that we run a process that is strong on vetting candidates. You will know the candidates very well by the time you get to a point of their becoming a finalist. But it's also comprehensive in terms of inclusiveness, in terms of making sure that the council has input into the process, that staff has input into the process, and your community has input into the process. So, we also do the most work that I think any recruiter can do without being here in City Hall. So in other words, we take a lot of the load off of staff and council to make sure that you have, that you don't get encumbered with a lot of work trying to sort through candidates and the process. So let me just walk you through the process as well. And by the way, I neglected to mention, we have, and I recognize some of you, we have done the recruitment process for you before for the city manager. And we've done a number of recruitments here in the Mid-Willamette Valley, as well as a number of projects here in the Mid-Willamette Valley. So, just starting off, sorry.
I think it's just feedback from our, I'll go ahead and mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I wasn't missing a question already. So let me just walk you through the process. So what we'll do, we like to set a firm foundation for you one of you individually, each one of the council individually, and your management staff individually, to ask, what are you looking for in the next city manager? What are the qualities and attributes? And it's not just looking at, do they have an MPA, how many years of experience, but also, what are the attributes, the soft skills that you want this person to have coming in? We also do surveys with the rest of city staff as well as with the community. And so we gather information of what the community would like to see in the next city manager, as well as the rest of the staff. We take all of that information and we put that together in what's called a candidate profile. And the candidate profile describes exactly what you're looking for in the next city manager. What does the ideal candidate look like? Now, I'll be honest, you're never going to find the person who checks every single box, but you have an idea of what that ideal person looks like. And then following that, we'll do that in a work session with you. We'll give you a draft, we'll work through it, make sure you're comfortable with it. And once you are, then we ask that you adopt the candidate profile, because by law, you have to do that. If you're going to hold executive session, talk about the candidates. So we ask that you approve the profile, and then we take that and we turn it into a recruitment brochure. And we then go out and we advertise the position for 4 weeks. We do it nationally. And we also do active recruitment from the network that we have of people that we know that we think might be good candidates for you in the next position. Once we get through those 4 weeks, we then will go through and do application review. And for those application reviews, we use retired city managers who have done the job, who will review the applications, and they will then rate the applicants. And we'll go down that list, and following that, we will identify the candidates that we think have the greatest chance of success in Sheridan. Following that, then we do interviews, Zoom interviews, with up to 10 candidates. And again, it's those retired city managers that are doing the interviews. So again, you have people who have done the job that are conducting those. Following that, then we also come back to you in executive session, and we will present you with everybody that we interviewed. Now, one thing I didn't mention is before we start the interviews, we do a Google search on the candidates. Our application process requires them to submit a cover letter, requires them to submit a resume, but it also requires them to submit a form that we have that helps to bring apples to apples and oranges to oranges in terms of how many people you supervise, what's the largest budget that you supervised, and through the different positions, so we can kind of compare the candidates across the board from that perspective. But we also ask them if they have ever had any involuntary departures from jobs, and to explain that, and if they have had any accusations of professional misconduct on the job. So when we interview them, and we've done the Google search, and if there's any sort of disconnect there, we will ask them about that during the course of the interview. So then, back to coming to executive session, we come to you, we give you a briefing notebook in executive session that has all the application materials available to you for all of the people that we interviewed. And we will go through and talk about each candidate and the pros and cons that we see with each candidate. And we will recommend to you up to 4 candidates to be finalists. It's not our decision to make, and so we look to you to say, yes, that those are the 4, or no, I'd rather have that person in there or that person in there. But when we walk out of the room, we know then we'll call the candidates who have been selected as finalists, and I ask them 2 questions. The first question is, are you willing to move forward as a finalist? And 2, are you willing to go public? Both questions have to be yes. Assuming they say yes, we give them a couple of days to tell their employers if they're currently employed. And then we help you draft a press release on the 4 candidates, or however many you have. Following that, then we have a couple of weeks in between where we will head toward what I refer to as the finalist week. And the finalist week is a series of 4 days. The first day, the candidates come to town in person. They participate in 2 receptions. The first reception is one with your staff, and the second reception is one with your community. And with the community reception, we strongly encourage you as city councilors to attend that community reception so that you can see how these candidates are interacting with your community. Now, the reception is a little bit of a misnomer because it's actually a facilitated meeting. So we ask each of the candidates in these receptions to give a 3-minute or 5-minute background on themselves to the participants. And then following that, we divide everybody up by however many finalists we have into different groups. And then we rotate the candidates between the groups on intervals. Usually it's like 15-minute or 20-minute intervals that we rotate them. So it's kind of like speed dating for a job. Yes, Councilor.
Last time around, my memory's never dependable, but I remember you had 3 different phone call, open phone calls that people could call in, but they were all going on at the same time. And thus, you're recommending that we attend these receptions. I attended one, but I don't know anything about the others. Is that still the same?
Right, well, there are only 2 that we propose. One's community and the other's the staff. The staff reception, we normally ask the council not to attend, actually, so that staff can feel comfortable kind of giving their opinion. Because what we do at the end of these receptions is we give them a survey. And the survey is either on a QR code or we have hard copies as well, asking the participants, how well do you think this person fits to be the next city manager? And then there's a scale. So we collect those surveys at the end of the reception. The second day, normally we will take the candidates, usually have somebody like your public works director, or do a tour of the city, so they have a chance to see the city and city facilities. And in the afternoon, we run 3 panels, interview panels. The first panel is a community leader panel that you folks have selected who you would like to have on that community leader panel. The second is a group of public administrators, other city managers in the area, or directors of the special districts who are local here to the area. And then the third group is your department heads or management staff here at the city. All of them will go through an interview process. We prepare the questions and we facilitate. We have a moderator for each of the panels, make sure that all goes smoothly. And then we facilitate a little discussion at the end to get people's input and ask them to fill out rating forms. With one exception, the local public administrator group will not fill out a rating form. And the reason is that the ICMA Code of Ethics says that they cannot rate, rank, or recommend. And so we just go through a pro and con session with them and capture the pros and cons from that particular group. The third day is the day that you folks would be interviewing the candidates. And so we usually do about an hour and a half interview with each candidate. We help them So we'll go through all of that. Now, one thing I'd also like to mention is everything from the application rating to the interviews to the assessments that are done by the panels. All of that is based on the position profile that you folks came up with, because that becomes the holy grail, if you will, of the criteria that we use to evaluate your candidates. And we ask, and the questions that you have in the questionnaires will relate back to that. Following that, then the fourth day is City Council deliberation. And at the deliberation, we will ask you to download first your impressions of the candidates. And following that, then we will download for you what we have learned. And we will have at that point done background checks, criminal and credit background checks on all the candidates. We will also have done reference checks with the candidates or from the candidates list. And we will then download with you what came out of the receptions. What did the people at the reception say? What did the survey say? What did the panel say? So that you then have the benefit of that whole cadre, if you will, of information that you can then use to deliberate. And at that point, normally I facilitate a deliberation, and you will hopefully pick one of the candidates to move forward. We do ask that you come out of executive session after that, and that you announce with a vote in regular session who you're going to make an offer to pending negotiations. The reason that we ask that to happen right away is because word gets out, and no matter how hard you try, it just gets out. So better just to come out of exec session and make it public at that point. So that's our whole process. I think at this point, probably best if I just take questions.
Any questions? Ian?
During this process, do you interview the previous employer and previous employees of the candidates?
We do ask, when we ask for references, we ask them to give us 4 references. The first is an elected official that they have supported. The second is a subordinate who they have supervised, and then 2 other people who can speak to their abilities as a city manager. We don't go back to their communities. I know I've seen that done a few times, but we don't do that, no.
Why is that?
Cost.
Okay, thank you. Matt, one more. Does the criminal background check include previous lawsuits the candidate has been named in, whether as someone that's a complainant or a defendant?
As part of our background check, we also do a civil litigation check. And so anything that, any civil litigation that they've been involved in will come up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
Eric, I got one.
Go ahead.
How long does this recruitment process approximately take?
So you can take 16 weeks roughly from the time that we have the very first phone call with you until that candidate is selected. I will say, one of the other things you'll find with us is we tend to be fairly straightforward with regard to what you can expect in terms of candidates coming in. And that's something we would, of course, want to talk with you, make sure your city size and so forth.
During the, say, the 4 final candidates stage, before you ask your 2 questions, what if, during that process, hypothetically, the council was to find that we did not care for any of these 4 candidates that you have brought to us at this point?
And that's obviously a possibility. At that point, then we will turn to you and ask you, would you like to go back out? Or would you like to go to a different firm? But it's up to you at that point if you want us to go back out. It's possible that you could go further down the list, but I would say, in all honesty, you're not going to find a list that's going to be that strong that you can go too deep down, in my experience.
To be clear, 100%, I don't doubt your process at all. I am actually thinking more along the lines of availability of candidates. For instance, maybe one isn't even thinking of it, and then circumstances change in their lives, and maybe we turn down these 4 in hopes that maybe something turns up. I don't know. I'm just for foreseeable circumstances that may arise.
It wouldn't be the first time that we went out a second
Okay, good.
time. Yeah, so that's entirely possible. The one thing I would ask you to keep in mind is, as candidates are looking at your city, they're going to read all the media related to the city, and that's going to influence, for better or worse, that will also influence their perceptions about applying. So just be aware of that.
Good.
Go, Jim.
Remember the process last time, I was very satisfied with it, but therefore I didn't really thoroughly read your brochure this time. But there is a warranty that if things don't work out between the city manager and the council, once we made a selection, we can back up and try again. Is that correct? That's still the case, I guess.
So if you were to make a selection of a candidate, and they signed a contract with you, and they didn't work out within the first year, then we would go back out for only direct costs. So you'd have to pay again for advertising, and that's travel for candidates and that sort of thing. But our labor costs would be written off at that point.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Kai, and then I think Liz has her hand up.
Who was your last client in the area?
Dayton.
How many applicants did you bring to Dayton?
See, I didn't run that once. You're testing me. I'd have to go back and ask our project manager for that, how many she had. I want to say it was like a dozen, but I'd have to go back.
Was it successful?
Yes.
Okay, all right, Liz?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry if I missed this, but what's the cost for this process?
So, the labor cost on this is $27,000. We would normally come in around 28, but your repeat client will knock 1,000 off. And then you have direct expenses on top of that. And the direct expenses are your advertising costs, any travel, lodging, that type of thing. And that can run you up to, say, 5,000, 5,500.
And that includes the vetting cost as well? Vetting
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this? Okay, yeah, it looks like page 11, it's got a list of organizations they've worked with, their recruitment experience. Some of these cities are close by, some of them are further away, but they're also bigger than our city, so.
So, we've worked with, a lot of the cities in the Willamette Valley, either on city manager recruitments or on other projects, city council goal setting, that sort of thing. But I think, we have I mentioned here, number 7 on the cover letter, we've worked with, McMinnville, Carlton, Dallas, Dayton, Silverton, Stoughton, Woodburn.
Looks like Sisters, you got their city manager in 17 and 23, so they came back.
Yes, they did. There would be Wyatt. Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you know who recruited Mount Angel's, city manager?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions?
Doesn't look like it, okay. Anything else you wanna add?
Just, it would be a pleasure to work with you folks again, should you, choose to go with us. We'll look forward to hearing what you decide.
Okay.
Okay.
Alright, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
And the rest of this packet too, there's example recruitments too. Everybody can look through. Okay. So, next pavement study, Keller Associates, is Keller here?
Keller's not gonna make it tonight.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that was a staff.
Oh,
Specifically mine.
okay.
I told them on the 18th, and I told Yvonne the 3rd.
Oh, okay. But they know to come the 18th then?
Yeah, I told them the next meeting, which I meant the 18th, but of course, calendar-wise, the workshop's on the 3rd, but I meant the actual meeting, which is the 18th.
Okay.
Oh, you forgot
So-
the word regular.
I did.
Well, okay, they'll be here hopefully sometime, hopefully the 18th. Okay, alright, well, next, we have Gary with the, Denmark wastewater presentation. Is there a, oh, there is.
There's a lot on here. Here we go. And it's not on the first page, of course. I'll get you to the beginning. There we go.
Alright, well, so, as everybody knows, I went to Denmark in September. I was going to learn about wastewater and how Denmark, what they do with their wastewater, and all the benefits that they have for their communities. On, let's see, first page here. So, second page, the announcement. The League of Oregon Cities had an announcement in their weekly edition of the bulletin. The Center for Sustainable Industries is hosting a fall tour in Denmark to introduce the wastewater community to what is referred to as an industrial symbiosis. The study has space for 25 leaders, and the LOC encourages cities to consider participating in the study tour. They also put out $5,800 per utility as available as a scholarship to go on the tour, which covered everything except for the airfare. I completed the application and was selected to join the tour. The next page is just the quote that I found that kind of embodied the whole thing. You can't solve a problem with the same kind of thinking you used when you created it. That holds very true for Denmark, as in the 70s and 80s, the waters around Denmark, pretty much all the fish and a lot of the aquatic life was dying because of how polluted the waters were. So they started government started coming up with ideas and putting incentives out, and so they would start changing to more of a green future. Denmark is a leader in showing how wastewater treatment plants can serve as an industrial symbiosis in innovative platforms. The IS concept pioneered by Denmark is groundbreaking triple bottom line approach to infrastructure and economic development, where one sector's waste, energy, water, and materials become a valuable resource for other businesses. CSI has led several high-impact industrial symbiosis study tours for Northwest leaders in Denmark, but this is the first specifically focused on wastewater symbiosis. A key goal was to translate inspiration and learning into action back home, helping local utilities reshape millions of dollars of capital investment to realize the economic and sustainability benefits of industrial symbiosis. What was the benefit for Sheridan? The city of Sheridan has an open wastewater study on Yamhill Street, partly due to capacity issues. When I started in 2022, the city needed a fifth lagoon. However, through infiltration and inflow measures I took on, the need is delayed. We still need to make a plan for sewer expansion. A city is responsible for handling at least 20 years of growth, and sewer is needed for all types of growth. The city council has prioritized a new wastewater master plan, and this intense study would help us to figure out more cost-effective and better long-term solutions. On page 6 here, this Kelly Minty, she's the Klamath County Commissioner. Yeah, we got a little video to play here. It's about 1 minute and 29 seconds long, but it really encompasses what this is about.
Hi, I'm Kelly Minty. I'm one of the Pavement County Commissioners, and wow, being in Denmark to talk about industrial symbiosis has been a game change in my thinking around what potential we have in Oregon. It's amazing the effectiveness from thinking strategically, even 5 years out, at what they've been able to accomplish here. Now, they've been doing this for over decades, but really, it's rather simple if you think about it, and that's what I've been struck by. They have been able to get business leaders and community leaders around a table, all working for the common purpose of how do we make the best use out of our resources while also being economically viable. So what I think I'm gonna take away from this is the power of getting people around the table with a common vision and a real spirit of we are going to make changes and get things done. My most favorite thing that I've noticed culturally here is they do not waste a thing. Everything is intentional, it's disciplined, it's measured, and that means they're really effective. So what a great takeaway we have about how we can change our attitude and how we use our waste in order to be more successful, both economically and as a community.
And she really hits it on the head. There's a lot of things while you're there that you see. You're like kind of like a kid in a candy store. When you think you've got 20 bucks in your pocket, but you only got 2. You want everything, but you really need to focus on what your needs and wants are and try to make them match. We were joined on this tour, I believe, like I said, with 25 cohorts, and it was from big cities, including Steve Worley, who is the Public Works Director of the City of Vancouver. We had representatives from DEQ, Jennifer Weibel. We had people from BIDS Oregon there, and they help out a lot with grants and loans. It was just an incredible group of different people in all different sides of the cities, and everybody was coming to learn to see what we can do better. Steve Worley actually was at Pasco previous to the city of Vancouver, and they just completed, I believe it's the biggest industrial symbiosis project in the nation at $125 million. So it's all about reusing what you have. The program. Resource efficiency has been an embedded part of Denmark's green approach for decades. Locally, we want to grow our economy, providing industrial jobs. Industrial jobs means we have to have water available. although we have Stony Mountain, is it best to use clean fresh water for manufacturing needs or best to preserve for human consumption? We will need all the clean water we can get for our future generations. Effective wastewater management is not only protects people and ecosystems, but also unlocks valuable resources embedded in wastewater, contributing to a more sustainable industrial future. Sunday, September 22nd was the day that everybody, or a lot of people came together. Most flew in on Saturday. We had a welcome orientation. They kind of gave us a rundown of what the tour was going to be like, and it was intense. It was 7 every morning till 7 at night. A lot of times, you know, they might have us only at facilities till 5, between 3 and 5, but then we would go back and have groups and communicate and talk about what we've learned throughout the day. On Monday, we started a walk to State of Green, and the first thing that they did was put up the definition for symbiosis, which is the interaction between two different organisms living in close physical association, typically to the advantage of both. It is a mutually beneficial relationship between people or groups. I tried to make sure that every day I had something we took away that maybe we could use. Denmark emits 0.1% of global greenhouse gases. They have to reduce as a country greenhouse gases by 70% by 2030, and their goal as a nation to be net zero by 2050. It is the only country in the world with 100% groundwater supply. Denmark as a country is at 7% water loss because of how much they are able to reuse. Let's see. Since 2008, utilities have become separate from municipalities, but owned by the municipalities. Let's see. There are more than 700 wastewater treatment plants moving towards a centralized structure. That's a big push in Denmark, is to have all the small communities, it's like say us and Willamina and Amity and Perrydale, and everybody who has, they're trying to have one facility that everybody sends everything to. They currently have the same 2-pipe system like we have here in most places, and we'll get to that more later, but they're moving towards a 3. That pretty much narrows down day 1. Is there any questions on day 1 so far? Sorry guys, if I'm just talking about it.
You said the municipalities don't own, well, they do own
They own them, but they do not operate them.
so they have like private,
Right.
so.
Correct. It'd be like Clean Water Services or Danva or a place like that. So they own it, but then somebody else operates everything for them. Let's see. Where are we at here? Close the page. Also on Monday, that picture on the right there is a gigantic wastewater treatment facility. It's all underground. The picture on the left that you see all the clover in is the habitat above it. This facility has room for expansion. They have 2 different kinds of, they found out there was an endangered frog in one of their wetlands, so they can't ever actually expand actually to right where that picture is. And they also found, I believe it was a butterfly or something, another one that they can utilize. But they, it's all underground, so they're not affecting them as much. But that was kind of interesting. They had this huge property and then they couldn't use part of it.
Gary, I have a question. Why are those facilities underground?
They did that so A, it's not so much of an eyesore, and B, it's just it keeps, how did they explain it? It had to do with temperature and keeping just everything more controlled. Underground, it's not everything's not subjected to the UV and climate change. Where underground you hold a better temperature.
Can they use the ground, I mean, we've got the picture there, can they use that, for anything, or is it just left green for, everybody knows there's a.
I did not ask that question. kind of on a little bit of information overload right there first day, but, I don't know that it's structural enough that they could put another like industrial place on top of it.
I was thinking just maybe pasture, you know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's see, what else do I have here? So many notes I took. They try to follow the Paris model. They focus on the baseline, transition from voluntaries to demand, and they have new laws. Let's see here. They have their energy positivity and energy positivity and climate positivity are possible on wastewater treatment plants. They take 5 to 10 years to pay back after they're implemented, 20 to 25 years in total. Step 1, set goals. Be bold and take steps. It is possible to be energy and climate neutral. Let's see.
I'm on
Tuesday, here we go. That facility in the background is the facility that they manufacture, pharmaceutical factory, and they manufacture the Ozempic and Wegovy weight loss and diabetes medications. That facility, there's another slide that we'll get to, but they're estimating that they'll need 5,000 to 10,000 new homes for workers in these facilities in the next 10 to 15 years. Denmark also manufactures 50% of the world's insulin in facilities just like this. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Let's see, annual savings and local growth. They save 586,000 tons of CO2. They will have 1,300 new jobs in that building in the next 5 years. They have 12 new educational programs, and they have invested $10 billion into these facilities. Denmark has a saying that make the cake bigger, meaning involving more people together. Maybe you don't like all the cake, but bake something you do like. They use water considered as waste, like water that contains PFAS, but not for drinking, but as steam and bioplastics. They also have another saying to treat partnerships like marriages, keep growing and have lots of babies. They want to make sure that everybody is a partner in this, so that way everybody is contributing to making Denmark a greener country. All right, this one here. This kind of shows how and I have a picture here I can pass around, but it's a cross-sectoral collaboration. It shows the lake there going to their surface water, going to the water supply, and then untreated water to an oil refinery, which then the wastewater, it's heated process water that comes out of the refinery and goes to an energy producer. Now, if you follow the red line, that's district heating. District heating is where they take the water that has been used and they help to heat the whole community with that water. So it saves on heating costs for all the residents. They also are able to put electricity back into the grid off of these plants. Most of them are, I believe they said, a net 65, where they use 65% of the power and energy produced and send the other 45% back into the system. That's about it for that picture. This one is this picture is a great illustration. It might be kind of hard to see here, and I can pass this around. But this is that town that I was talking about that's right next to that that pharmaceutical manufacturer. There's a water facility, and this is where it comes to, they have a 3-pipe facility. They have their normal blue pipe for drinking water, they have the green pipe for the wastewater, and then they have purple pipe in the ground. The purple pipe in the ground comes from where it says the rents Varket there in the bottom right, they take all of their rainwater and stormwater runoff, it goes into a pond, and then they have a filtration plant that doesn't make it quite drinking water approved, but they take all the impurities and clean it, and then that goes into the purple pipe, and that's what it's plumbed into the homes in this development that they're building, as wash water, be toilets, shower water, and, washing dishes, and that sort of deal. So they're not wasting anything, they're using all of the resources that they have. Might be easier than I can pass this around. Sure. Sorry, I didn't jump there. Okay, Wednesday the 25th, we were in class all day. We got to tour the Grundfos pump facility. So Grundfos is a very respected pump and water and wastewater facilities. Then we got to also see their wastewater treatment plant that they have on site. Thursday the 26th. Let me get to my notes here. Then we went to the DANVA headquarters. DANVA is like a SCADA system. It's operations and controls for water and wastewater facilities. We learned there that if in Denmark, if your water loss as a industrial business or in town or city, if your water loss is above 10%, you pay a tax on it. It's the same as the EPA, but the EPA doesn't have the taxes. Let's see. They have moving focus to a micro pollutant removal at the wastewater treatment facility. They have an 80% reduction of many substances. The next slide, this is one of my favorite ones. This is one of the places that we went, and it's just all about how to capture energy, just what it says. The cap and pow. They capture carbon and also hydrogen. They purified this one particular facility, purified the hydrogen so that way they could use it to fuel their vehicles. And another example that they used for reuse was all the carbon, the CO2 like they put in the sodas and beers and that sort of deal. They have a facility there that purifies it enough that they can sell that CO2 back to the bottling distributing companies. They also generate enough power at this one to run their whole facility without having to buy it off the site. The next slide shows a picture of two of the tanks that they actually use to sell back to the bottling companies, which is incredible, this place. Friday, that picture there is an example of some of the old wastewater sewer mains from roughly I believe it was the 1800s, 17 to 1800s. A lot of the technology's changed, but it's all the same. Keep it sealed and funnel it somewhere. Let's see. There's lots more, guys. I just tried to put a kind of a quick Cliff Notes version of what we did there. The next slide is what's next for Sheridan. How can I take this information that I brought in and how can we apply it to Sheridan? Well, we need to find funding for the wastewater and stormwater facilities plan. We should probably do them at the same time because they're different, but they're the same. You're capturing stormwater and it needs treated, and wastewater needs captured and treated as well. I think that'd be pertinent to when we go through this that we look for when we're selecting who is going to do these plans, an engineer that's familiar with the symbiosis waste and stormwater processes and plants. We might not be able to do everything that they're doing overseas and in other countries, but there are things that we can do here. Find the funding and continue to develop state and federal partnerships. We still have, I didn't fully understand, I guess, but this isn't stopped. It has not stopped since we got home from Denmark. We've had regular meetings, every 2 weeks to, if we moved them to every 4 weeks now, just to see what everybody's doing and, you know, bounce ideas off each other as to what we can do. And then we can continue to educate staff and leaders from Sheridan about the symbiosis process. And then there's just a couple more pictures I got. I had about a half day where I could go check things out. So. Anybody have any questions for me?
Yvonne, can you go up a couple slides? There's like that map of where the different water was going.
Yes.
This one or the one further up yet? The
Yeah,
one that they
several.
passed around?
It was like Tuesday.
There we go.
The slide before the one, the
This
picture that was,
Yes.
the one before that.
Okay.
This one. Okay, so this one, it almost looks, here, go down a little bit.
You're talking this one?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one, it's looking like they're getting their water from like a natural source, and then it's going to, you know, a water supply. And a water supply would be like our water plant, right? And then they're sending treated water to an oil refinery, and their runoff goes to the energy production. Is
Yeah,
that?
they take the heated processed water out of their, the word's left me now, but it's basically wastewater. It's water they've used for a process at the oil refinery, but rather than just disposing of it or doing nothing with it, they found a way to use it as a benefit to the community.
So since it's, because if it's, I guess, liquid enough and doesn't have a bunch of junk in it, they can just reuse it as long as no one's drinking it.
Right, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're using it like this. That plant was using it for not only direct heating but steam for the pharmaceutical company at the enzyme producer.
Okay. So in some of them, it looks like their waste, they're, you know, being able to use it again, kind of like we're talking about purple pipe, except, you know, maybe it doesn't even have to be as clean as the purple pipe. They're just going to use it to cool machinery or something. They don't have to drink it.
They use it for cooling machinery. They use it for heating not only town but other other industries is what I'm trying to say. And they get real. I learned really fast that they do not like it when you call it wastewater, because to people in Denmark it's a resource, and they are proving that it is. We're not the same. Whereas they started on, like I said, on this in the 80s, so we're about 40 years behind them. They said that the only aspect of recycling different products, the only place that we're actually ahead of them on is all of the new PFAS and PFAS information that we have, and it's basically because they ignored it. But they said that they will surpass the United States within 5 years of how to deal with the PFAS and PFAS.
Well, looking at, you know, a diagram like this, I remember when we were talking, you know, about fluoride in the water, talking about what all the different things that water we use. I mean, really what we don't use, if we look at our total water consumption, there's not a whole lot that's just, you know, straight drinking that goes into our body. I mean, it might be weird to some people to use wastewater to wash their clothes, but there's like watering, you know, stuff that, or even some of these companies, like, they don't need to be using drinking water to, you know, cool their machines or whatever.
Right.
It's just, it's interesting, and it kind of has made me thinking of something we kind of talked about not long ago as far as water.
They don't water their yards. They're not into. They don't want to waste their resource on things like that. Nobody really washes their cars. The people that do have the cars, I mean, you pull into these parking garages, and that would be like for, say, Salem Center Mall or whatever, when they used to have the giant parking garages for the cars. They have them for bikes. I've got pictures where there's 1,000 bikes on this one, and then they lifted it up so there was parking under it for the next 1,000 bikes. That was just incredible. Everywhere. Then they, like, four-wheeled bikes, they're pushing carts with whole families on them. I mean, it's just completely different.
Nice, Peter.
Can I ask just the general questions to get caught up? Like,
Yeah.
where's our water routed right now? Where is it treated? What are we doing with it? Just here in town.
So some of our, right now, we're relying primarily on our springs which come up off of Stony Mountain. Or do you know where that's located? Up
Yeah.
East Creek. So up there, we have springs that come from there clear to town, which is what we utilize right now as our main source of water. We're using the water plant is also up there, where the American flag, is on the hill on that reservoir. That's where the water plant is. So, most of the year we use the river as a supplement to the spring.
How
And then
about
it comes down to the river.
How about where all the sewer is going right now?
The sewer, it all goes to the city has a primary and secondary lagoon over there off of Highway 18, and then the Federal Corrections Institute has a primary and a secondary lagoon, and then it's treated, we chlorinate it, dechlorinate it, and then it goes to the river, the Yamhill River, from November 1st through April 30th, and then we either hold for the rest of the summer or it's irrigated on some fields that are just east of town.
So you're saying we're getting close to capacity of how much of that we can dump into the river, use to irrigate, versus how much is coming in?
Well, no, we stay ahead of it.
Well,
We have to,
people were
this
talking
time-
about plans to like upgrade the sewer. What is that all about? What's the need? Just anticipating growth or what?
anticipating growth, and then we can, as a city, we can do lots of things to help that out. Getting a better handle on our inflow and infiltration that we have, and that is where you have your bells or your joints, where you might get roots that go in there, which then will allow groundwater into our system. And even though it's just groundwater or rainwater, if it goes to our lagoons, we treat it just like it's not.
Do we know how much of the sewage is like human waste versus like rain?
I don't have exact percentages.
Yeah, just we have a general idea, like
Peter, would you like to take a facility tour?
sure.
Would anybody else like to join, Peter?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll reach out by email.
Yeah.
And we'll provide you a tour.
That was actually my last question anyway, but yeah, I do want to take.
And yeah, we look at dry weather flows compared to wet weather flows, and that shows us the difference for I&I, which is inflow and infiltration, which is what Gary's talking about.
Yeah, the main reason I'm asking is just how much of our water is useful for things like this. 'Cause I don't see a ton of people needing, human wastewater, maybe farms nearby, but there's laws against using that for obvious reasons.
And there's a lot of laws against what you saw. It's just a fact that in America, we're 1,500 to 3,000 years behind Europe.
Yeah.
So they were there,
Right.
they're a lot longer than we are. So infrastructure in the United States really didn't probably start until 1850s, 1860s. Just wasn't needed. So we're way behind them. I've had fascinating conversations with engineers from England and Australia and New Zealand. That's for whatever reason they end up here quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to have a conversation with them and learn something new. So yeah.
Their outlook on things is completely different. Because we're at this tour, and when they did speak about water stuff, they're all reuse. Whereas the state's telling us if we don't use more of our water, the water rights can be reduced. So I was fighting this internal battle the whole time, like, man, we should save all this water, but I need to use more water. That's why we need to do the wastewater and stormwater facilities plan and then do a feasibility after that. Because like I said, not all these things are gonna be for us. Like I don't see, like right now where we would be able to put the money into industrial heating and send the heat back to town. Now, if there is if this town expands out that way, sure, let's look into something like that, but that's not feasible for us right now.
Lucy?
I had mentioned to, Lonnie Hedgecliff was
public works director, so date that for me, but I was talking, I think I was on the planning commission, that they were talking something about water in new subdivisions. Is it possible, if this is like 4 ways that you can use water, which is probably more than that. My question was, you know, to clean the water to where it's clean enough that you can use it, but you wouldn't want to drink it. And my question back then was, with a new subdivision, is it possible to put in 2 pipes? One would be for good drinking water and one would be secondary water for if you wanted to water your lawn, or I'd say a garden, I could validate that, or use it for some other kind of use other than for consumption. And if you started maybe small and you did it with new subdivisions that were coming into town, maybe the city, because I'm just throwing stuff out there, could give an incentive if some subdivision would run 2 pipes, because obviously it's gonna cost them more. There should be some kind of incentive until I'm sure the government will change the rules so that that won't be good anymore, but at least you could try to get in on it in the beginning where you didn't have to have so many resources, just 2 basics, like this would be for outside, this would be for inside. Is that something that you could maybe, that to me seems more of a realistic than trying to go for the whole, what was it, 125 million or something?
Right, and that was just for, yeah, but you could do something like that, you know, if you had a big enough subdivision coming in and you say, hey, this is our standards and this is what we're up against, you could run that 3-pipe system.
Something that would be easier, that wouldn't require a lot of money, because I always think of the city being on a budget anyway,
Right.
even if they don't tell you, which is.
Well, and their benefit too on a lot of this is they have the industry pay for it, the different manufacturers, they have to pay a lot of money towards these facilities. So.
Because it just seems like if you could start it and then you were gonna change it, and then there would be upgrading all the old systems, but then all kind of comes in time, but you would at least be starting something without being a great big culture shock too, because nobody liked recycling either in the beginning.
Right, well, and there's a lot of these, there's several facilities that do it over there, but one of the ones that we toured, they pull the biosolids out of the different types of wastewater facilities, and then they manufacture down into, they were selling it in, the big tote bags, for pellets, and they were using it, selling it for fertilizer. Like, they used everything.
No, I can see why they'd be, if you think about it, nature does that anyway.
Right, so something like that, you know, there's not a lot of facilities around here that can take the sludge and manufacture something like that. So maybe something like that with the amount of room that we have, maybe we could, it just all depends on cost and feasibility.
Well, is that one of those things that you could use Abishai with Sedcor with, because they're looking at industrial? And then you could ship it somewhere, because you can ship fertilizer outside the area. Maybe they would be able to get some kind of funding and bring that whole industrial, because it sounds like an industrial project, you know, it's not commercial.
Yeah.
You know, well, it could end up if you sold the fertilizer to somebody, but.
Yeah, it's just.
But maybe something on a small scale, to say, hey, look, you know, we're gonna try this, and we're gonna be the first ones to do it.
Right.
But could you help, you know,
Exactly.
help get the money for the cost?
Yeah, we're obviously not gonna probably have a facility like, that produces the WCOG or Ozempic coming here right now, but in the future, maybe, you know, you never know what's gonna happen. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I suppose in the absence of an industry like that in the area, the incentive idea makes the most sense. Either to like residential people, if we have the pipes already, and what are you gonna say?
Well, right over there, right behind you on that map, everything in the gray is industrial, and a lot of our new subdivisions are just the east of that.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking zoning, just industries here that would wanna use that water aren't here yet. If we offered like an incentive for hookup to wastewater, saying, hey, the water's cheaper, we'll waive the hookup fee, whatever. Businesses might be inclined to move here just to use it.
Yeah, that's what Abishai kind of was talking about, but then again, you know, it's so open-ended. What is it that you wanna focus on? But that would be like what you call, what, a second or third quality water, because you definitely don't have to drink it.
The facility that they took us, the facility that was actually the one that we toured to go in there, I mean, it was so clean, they made you put on the little blue booties, and they specifically said, don't touch anything, like these facilities are just immaculate.
Cleaner than you.
And they are wastewater facilities, it's just wild.
there's a fair amount of stuff that happens in like development with the planning. I feel like Liam is probably having a heart attack right now listening to this, if he's listening. There's a fair amount of like stuff that we have zero control over, so, and rightly so. It should be in the power, and it should be in the hands of the people, which in this case, in many cases, is the developers. And so our hands are tied in many ways with these communities, and the only way that we can affect those changes is by making changes to the code. So if we want to, we should absolutely do that. Like, as far as incentivizing things, that I think we have some leeway in certain places, but the law won't allow us to do certain things or just make certain changes. And we also have a very comprehensive LEADS program in the United States, which is all about reducing, reusing, and recycling on site. This is a process that builders go through to get LEED certified, and there's different rankings, all the way from the way that these things happen. So I'm just saying, we have these things already here in place as well, as far as from the builder's standpoint. So those are just some things you may know.
I would hope we're not changing code on anything for any of this, because incentives alone would be enough to get people to adopt. Is there anything against us charging less for a certain type of water? Is there anything preventing us from doing that?
We would have to have the whole infrastructure set up. But once it is set up.
If it's rainwater or sewage, like, yeah, obviously it has to be a separate pipe. So that's
And all that's, I don't think, I know where, well, wastewater obviously goes to the wastewater plant, but where
this
does
whole
the rainwater
concept,
goes to river?
Right now it just goes to the river, but
So
that's why they have the industrial, these different, because they have developments or whatever, they have that into their, that would be like a similar to like a development code, like this is a requirement. If you have this big of a development, then these are your stormwater needs.
Because I guess we would have to look at, because, I don't know, to me, maybe it's easier to, treat the runoff like the rainwater and get that somewhere, but I don't know, maybe it's not. But if we have, regular water that we wanna drink, we have runoff water waste, and then wastewater, I don't know. I guess there's two other potentials there, but I don't know, is purple pipe legal? I know you mentioned it in Denmark, is it legal here? Okay.
Yeah, it's just a 3-pipe system, but that's just what they use to differentiate.
It sounds like we do extensively clean the wastewater before it goes back into the river, which is good, but if instead of it going to the river, I don't know, we would have to run a whole new network of.
Right, so that's why you wanna do the feasibility.
Yeah.
Right, because a lot of this, like I said, it's not feasible for us to just do. I mean, the cost for infrastructure, but if you did it in a way as Denny's gonna build a mill over here, then Denny, your stormwater needs to go through this, and then this is a benefit to the city. And then it would be something like that.
Or you could, I don't know, maybe just instead of running pipes to everybody, it would just run it to that industrial side of town.
Right.
Might be less than running to
Or
everybody.
new development, or it's all gonna take money and time, guys.
But yeah, lots of stuff that we can look at going forward with the feasibility and all that too. And if we can find an engineer, that's, cause it would be nice if we could, keep all of our good water from Stony just for drinking instead of giving it to somebody else.
And that's what they're trying to do. They have like that one lake that I can't remember the name of it, I'm sorry. But that's what they use that water out of that lake is for going to the mills, and then that's where or the refineries, and then they put that steam back in the system. All of their drinking water is it's untreated, and it's all groundwater from aquifer under Denmark. And they're using water in a fashion that their aquifers they're reloading just as fast as they use them. They have aquifers they haven't even touched yet. So.
Lucy.
So back to your statement when you were talking about, I would think the whole water pipe thing would be a lot like solar panels. When you first buy solar panels, you're not saving any money, but after a while, PGE buys it back from you, but there's this process in between. I've only known a couple people who have it, but they say at first you're not really making anything off of it. But after a while, I would assume that this process would work the same way. In the beginning, you're not gonna see much of a difference, but in the long run, if I can just kind of put that, cause I don't understand it either, but I'm thinking of it like solar panels. You will see it eventually after a while. It's just finding somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to the, I'm gonna call it the gray water that you put back into the river, but it's not really that gray. But you wanna be able to drink it.
Right.
So I don't have a problem reusing that. In fact, I heard that there's a car wash and they recycle, it's not in Sheridan, but they recycle their water and then they use it.
It's in McMinnville, it's ran out of water a lot of times in the last week.
Yeah, they at least recycle it. I mean, on a small scale, I catch the drift.
Yeah, basically they run it through and then they have big drains that catch everything and then it basically filters it enough so that they can rerun it through the system. And to go off what you guys are saying, I found a note, I knew I had something about it. They made it so that if your company is green, that makes it easier to borrow the money and they have incentivized grants too. So when you're building these, it pays off to be more friendly.
Okay, alright, Peter, and then we're gonna move on.
I just wanted to finish the thought, because maybe I misunderstood what Ian was saying. The main thing I was getting at is I would hate to make a new code for developers to deal with and make development more expensive here in town when it's already super expensive in Oregon in general. And so what I was hoping, instead of going and trying to mandate things, incentivize businesses or residential developments to pay for these improvements on their own, with the promise that the wastewater they'll be receiving is cheaper than pulling from our tap, essentially. If we're able to sell off water that we're currently dumping for a reduced rate and offer like free water hookups to that system, whatever, as long as they're paying for the runs, that's good for everyone. I don't see a downside to that. And like you were saying, it might start slow, because the cost is up front. But the more developed it becomes, the cheaper that hookup becomes as well. So we don't have a big business here in town that I know of that would take up that water right away. But if we are looking at developing like down in that, I don't know what direction it is, but that big development, if they build that and put in those pipes ahead of time, we could offer them like reduced rates.
So I'll just share one more thing because he wasn't here. Like when they get this water off of Stony Mountain, one of the things is kind of trying to get the water clean because it gets dirty traveling from here, from there. And I was hoping for down the road, if we're still here, putting turbines in to generate power coming down off the hill. Maybe Sheridan would be able to find a way to harness power like well, it's not called Mac Electric, but that's what I'll call it, because it's not PGE.
That bumps your water pressure down when you do that. Usually you'd wanna put the turbines at the home or business if their water pressure is too high.
I don't know, that's another thing for the engineers, but the thing of it is, when that time comes, if I don't say it for me or say something affiliated, because there you're starting out with something that hasn't even been built yet, so like just build it into it, because it doesn't get any better than already having it there, versus trying to figure out how to come in.
Before it's built. And
That's right,
things, yeah.
try to figure it out then.
Sure.
And so the last thing, just to tie this all up, I do wanna thank the council for allowing me to go on this trip to learn about this. It was an incredible trip, and thank you guys very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erik.
Really good presentation.
Okay, so next we have the interim city manager search status. Is that just? Is that just?
Hold on,
like
let's see,
a-
I think we might have the clock.
Oh.
Yes, cup.
Oh, okay. You must have joined it. I wasn't paying attention.
I'm here.
Okay. Hey. Is it Scott? It just says MWVCOG.
That's it's part of our secret squirrel stuff.
All right. Okay. Well, Scott. Okay. Well, looks like we've got a memo here. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I think the memo's fairly self-explanatory for you folks. folks where we are. We have received applications, and we've got some more parts to go through. We want to schedule a council to have interviews on the 18th in executive session. Tyler, chime in if I'm off base there. Legal counsel can advise you on that, but need to probably do some couple different things first. Council gets an assignment. That's a kind of a writing assignment, a ranking assignment to help us kind of narrow down what kind of qualities you're looking for in somebody. And that is a process. It takes some thinking about what it is that you need to do that. And in the first memo I sent you folks, I kind of outlined what we said as the interim profile. So we would be doing that. And the second thing is, I think it's probably wise to have a chit chat, at least with senior staff, at a minimum, have a conversation with them about what kinds of qualities and other issues might need to be addressed in this part of the process, so that we get their input and council can be informed about that. And then, of course, last, I need to call the applicants. Not everybody who's applied to date is qualified under your qualifications that we recommended to you and that we advertised under. So you need to do that. There's no need to talk to somebody you don't need to talk to, if that makes any sense to the council. And we would do that and then shoot for the 18th of February, I believe. Is that correct? Kai, Tyler, Yvonne, somebody out there?
That's correct, Scott.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, and that's what we would do and get you there. I think there's some good experience out there, and that's what you want. You want some good experience to kind of help staff be the best it can be and help guide council, especially considering you're getting ready to go into budget season. That's a big, important issue to be dealing with during this. So making sure that that experience is well qualified and experience that can translate and work with a small town staff, I think is something very, very important. I did budgets all the time, but 40, 50, $60 million budgets, and then all of a sudden showing up at a smaller budget where you're having to do all the work, and where I might have had to lead a team to do that. You got to be able to make that transition. So somebody who has experience in small towns, that's really important. So that's where we are in the process. And in the little memo that I sent to y'all via Tyler, it outlines those qualities we're looking for and what you folks can do. I think your staff's working real hard. We're getting lots of updates. We're in the middle of things and talking to Kai. I'm not talking directly to Kai all the time, but my staff is, and the folks in and out of the building. So we're, making sure we're getting good information in this. But I think it's so far it's a good quality of candidates. We might receive a couple more between now and the 18th, but we can do that. So that's how I look at the process. Are there any questions for me?
Scott, this is Tyler. I just want to clarify, is there any direction or guidance that you need from the council at this point?
I guess the biggest question is, I intended to, but I need to kind of be more clear about that with council, is that we've asked for a series of minimum qualifications to get into this. And you've got a goodly number of applicants that meet that, but you have a couple that do not. I would assume, and I don't want to assume wrongly, but assume you want me to cull those out. So what council's doing is it's winnowing down this process to just talking to a couple, maybe 3 at most, in your conversation, so you guys can make a good decision based upon a qualified candidate. I'm testing my assumption with y'all.
Yeah, I mean, does that make sense to
That makes
everybody?
perfect sense. Yeah. If they don't meet a minimum qualification, why should we talk to them?
Well, yeah, if there's a consensus, then yeah, Scott, I think.
Why should we talk to them if they don't meet the minimum requirements?
That's what I'm saying.
I think that for the interim one, I think that's absolutely a really good thing to follow, in my opinion. But I think for city manager, general, I think we should be open to considering potentially people that do not fall within the normal realm, but for this one, I really agree with you.
I will say in the longer run process, to answer the councilman's question, in the long run, you'll go through a little bit more of a heady process. One of the things I've made clear to the candidates is that this is a 3 to 6 month stint, so that there's no blinders about it. It may take a little while to go through this process. I just didn't want anyone to think it would be a couple weeks or a month and done kind of thing. And I think everyone kind of understands that. More or less understands that. But in the longer process, Councilman, we will actually make council go through a little bit, council and staff go through more of this process where you guys are defining what defines a leadership and the skills that you need for that. While you're quite right that there may be folks outside of that, that's your opportunity to have that discussion out loud with your peers, which is also an exercise in making sure that the council is together. There is nothing a good quality candidate can't sniff out better than a council that's not on the same page. So we want to help you guys get on the same page. It's the single most, I don't want to sound too pompous about it, but it's one of the larger and bigger decisions that a council will make collectively together, and it's council's choice. So we want to help you folks work out some of those things in advance to getting there, so that the candidates that you all like have a clear picture of the council's ability to work together and move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Just something we want to achieve with you folks.
Hey Scott, it's Kai. I just want to address council really quick. To piggyback on what Scott was saying about the decision that council's going to have to make, staff has a lot of experience in public service. Would you be interested in hearing from staff about candidates? Some of us, like myself, have only worked in 2 cities, but I've worked for 8 different city managers. Had the privilege to, most of it. Other staff, there's probably several hundred years collectively in public service at your disposal if you chose. We could make an arrangement. You could get staff's input.
For the interim. Okay.
We would, we intend, Kai, to make that part of the process where we would seek both input and as part of the process too, so that the council, who has the final decision in this, and it is council's decision, it gets all the input it needs from folks involved. And I certainly think right now, you folks are in a place where if we can team build like that, it helps anybody coming in and it helps y'all. So I think those can be encouraging things to do.
I don't think it would hurt. I mean, as long as there's a way to really, get good engagement, from staff, I think it'd be good to hear from as many people as we can.
I think we would probably listen to Scott on what he was going to narrow it down to, and then let him take the lead on what staff's interaction would be and how we do that. I'm not sure if we would just go through the applicants or actually talk to them. I think that would be something at that level that might be more of a council level, actually talking to them, but I think staff would have valuable input.
I would hope that the staff felt safe to approach the council or the mayor and to tell us if they had any ideas about anything like that. I think that's something that, it doesn't even really require for us to have to make that decision. I think an employee should be able to approach the mayor and tell them what they think.
If I can advise one thing on that, while I certainly understand the sentiment on that, one thing I will tell you is that a manager in your form of government works for the council. The employees do not. The employees work for the manager. And I think sometimes when you create an atmosphere when people can go around, even with the best of intentions, that's a rough way to start off. But now it's a small town. People know each other. They bump into each other at church and at the ball field and at the grocery store, on the street. So, it's not like we don't acknowledge that reality. But at some point in time, managers have to make decisions, and so do councils. And so one of the protections for all concerned is to make sure that that line is clearly understood. We will, Councilor, make sure that we find a way to gather good information and insight from the employees. Kai, I think, said it well. We will have those conversations and make sure that we're getting that kind of input about the kinds of things we're looking for. We've done this before, and we want to make sure we have that. Part of your homework assignment will be to kind of challenge and think about those kinds of things as well. So hopefully we can go into this with a good list of questions for candidates, good ability for council to review resumes and the input of staff on what makes things hum well. So council can also ask those kinds of questions too. Hey, you said you weren't a very nice person around people, for example. That's not going to work real well here. People, we get along with each other and that kind of thing. So, even something as simple as that to complicated as how would you forward your discounted cash flows on the building of a new, really cool wastewater treatment plant like the young man was talking about previously. So, you got to be able to work in both worlds. Anyways, that's me. 38 years of being a city manager. I thought I'd put that in there.
All right, Jim. I like the concept of a 3 to 6 month job because just listening to Erik Jensen, that's about how long the process takes to get a new permanent city manager. When would you be expecting that we would actually hire our interim city manager?
Well, we'll have it on the 18th and we'll figure it out. I've told folks that the council and staff would probably like to be able to move rather quickly after that. None of these require relocation or interim services or anything like that, so I think we're okay there. In some cases, you have to think about those things, unfortunately, but in this particular case, we should be able to move pretty quickly towards something for you folks. So, maybe the 1st of March or so into there, and that's budget season. Kind of, it's also the beginning of the end of real wet season and the transition into how do you get everything ready for the dry season and all the other services that you got to do in the spring and things you got to have ready for the summer and in addition to budgets and all the other fun stuff that the council gets to work on.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, thank you. Well, you'll be here the 18th.
Yep, and you'll be hearing from me between now and then too. I'll be working through Tyler and Kai on this. All right.
All right, thank you.
But Scott, before you go, Mayor, when would you like to begin that executive session on the 18th, given?
Scott, how long do you think that exec session will last?
Gosh, that could last a while.
Yeah.
Because there's those discussions and, those interviews and then there's council discussion and then there's, I don't want to preclude where the council may go as a result of those things. So it could take you a good hour plus in that, hour and a half in that. So it doesn't matter. I think probably the easiest thing to do is at the end of your agenda, so you get your city business out of the way and you guys can move on and get to this later.
Okay.
Or you could start your meeting at 6,
Yeah, we could start the regular at 6, just so we could have that buffer for the end. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking we could start exact at 5 and the regular at 7, but yeah. Why don't we do that?
Yeah. I mean, we can work with you guys on that. If you're open to either at the front end a couple hours or at the back end a couple hours by pushing that meeting around one way or another, I think we can work with you on that.
I think
that's not a problem.
Yeah, I think if we start the regular at 6 and have it at the end would be.
We do have a public hearing that night that's announced for 7.
Oh, so we.
In that case, we will not be starting our meeting at 6. I forgot. Thank you.
Okay, maybe, I don't know, see what council thinks. To start exec session at 5 and then regular at 7? Is that too early?
Whether or not that's early, so.
Well, Ian.
I I honestly don't think this will take as long as this man is, projecting. I don't. Maybe we could even hold it at a sooner date. Is that a possibility? It's executive session, so we can sign up for whenever this person is available.
Yeah, I guess that's true, Scott. We could have our own a dedicated exec session meeting. Like
You
next
can,
Monday or
you can,
something.
you can have another one. You can have another one, yeah.
Would next Monday work for you, or is that too soon?
It does not work for me.
No,
Sorry
it's
about
not.
that.
Doesn't work for me.
Okay.
I don't think that
We should ask what works for Tyler first.
trying another day is not.
Honestly.
Okay. All right. Well, what if we started at 5:30, and then if it takes an hour, then we don't have to sit around for an hour. How does that work? We don't have to sit around for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. 5:30.
We can work with that. We can work with everyone on
Does that work
yeah.
for you?
And we can deliberate in executive session at the end of the meeting if we need more time.
Okay. Yeah, we can
Yes.
have a placeholder at the end. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, 5:30 then on the 18th then. Okay. All right. Thank you,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Next we have the ARPA funds update. Tyler, I think this is you.
Yeah, that's me. So I made Yvonne read my memo and she didn't cross out any words, unfortunately. I'm good at using a lot of words. But
You're an
it,
attorney.
like the sound of my own voice. So essentially, just trying to distill the memo down. Initially, the plan was to utilize the direct ARPA award that the city got, the $1.3 million was for infrastructure projects, specifically talking about Sheridan Road. And then we pivoted to the 5 identified projects that we approved in December. After that December meeting, when city staff was working with the COG to obligate that money and figure out what the heck we're doing, so that we didn't lose that 1.3 million, Laura uncovered another avenue. Instead of utilizing those ARPA funds for direct infrastructure improvements, jurisdictions are allowed to categorize the grant award as revenue replacement. And essentially what that would look like is there's sort of a standard amount that the Department of Treasury allows a city or a local jurisdiction to utilize. So as long as the local jurisdiction received less than $10 million, we can just kind of say lost revenue, less than $10 million. We've obligated and spent our ARPA money and we're kind of done with those funds. The one remaining outstanding question that I was hoping we would have answered today, but we haven't received confirmation, is if there were any prior deadlines that the city missed that we would have needed to report to Treasury that we were going the revenue replacement route instead of direct infrastructure investment route. We believe that we have not missed any reporting deadlines that would preclude that redirect. But we are still waiting for direct confirmation from the people who need to tell us yes or no. So what staff is requesting at this time, slightly different than the proposed motion, would be upon confirmation from the Department of Treasury that we can make that pivot into the revenue replacement path, that we move forward with that use of the ARPA money. And essentially what that will do is free up the $1.3 million within our budget already. So it's, I don't want to say that it's a bit of a shell game, but it's accounting differences between the two that doesn't mean we would have to change what projects we're using that money for. It's just what our reporting obligation to Treasury would be.
So we would still fund all the projects, and then there wouldn't be that 10%.
That's correct. That's correct.
So we would be able to use the full 1.3 instead of like, I don't know, 1 point, whatever math that is, 2 or something. Oh yeah, okay. So we would still have that extra money. We don't get any more than 1.3 though, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, okay. Okay, Jim,
Was changing it over to replacing revenue versus using it as the original instructions we got, is it just to save that 10%? Is that the concept?
It is, that's a part of it, but I think the other contributing factor that makes it very valuable is it will be much more streamlined for reporting purposes and for closing out that grant. So if we are using that money for the direct infrastructure investment, we would still have a year or two, I guess, not two. So end of 2026? Yeah, so we could potentially have a project that goes into December of 2026, and then we would be closing out. And we won't have to deal with federal procurement rules, which streamlines things. There's still state level procurement rules that we would have to follow, but there are some more strings attached with the federal. So instead of having to wait to report on those projects and wait for them to be completed, we would essentially be able to wrap up all of our grant reporting stuff earlier instead of having to deal with the grant reporting plus executing the actual projects, as well as saving the 10%.
Yeah.
Does anyone know if this change would affect us acquiring grants in the future and or qualifying for grants that we are currently trying, like obtaining or stuff, as far as like the city now having revenue that it didn't spend, or anything like that? And if you don't know, that's fine, just maybe you can look into it.
I am unaware of any impact that this change will have on our ability to collect grants.
I meant specifically, like, say if one was for wastewater, but you can only get it if you haven't already gotten grants on wastewater for a certain amount or percentage of the, value of what you need repaired in your wastewater plant or whatever.
Yeah, because these funds were through the American Rescue Plan, they aren't connected to any other grant. So it's not like CDBG where we can only have a couple open, or it's special.
Specific infrastructure projects, right?
Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
I didn't make the motion.
You remember what?
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Okay.
I think I should start out. I move with confirmation from the Department of Treasury to authorize and direct city staff to designate the city's ARPA funds as replacement of lost revenue and to take additional actions necessary to effect such designation.
That's one of the best motions we've had this year.
I second it.
Okay. First and second, any discussion on that? Okay. Liz will have to vote. Well, we'll figure that out. All in favor? Well,
Even if
it's mostly unanimous, so.
Oh, there she is, she raised her
Okay.
hand.
All right, so it's unanimous, okay. Okay. Next, we have the ODOT agreement.
Thank you, council.
That's on page 3.
Oh, this one's also me. I thought this was Kyle. Do you want me to take it? How do you want to take it? So at our last council meeting, we had council approve the, overall project agreement with ODOT to facilitate the, I think it was $4.5 million to that were allocated for Wilmette to Sheridan stretch of Highway 18B to have all of the curb ramps ADA compliant. As part of that process, ODOT needs to work on, relocate, take down, and put back up some utilities. ODOT is only responsible for utility they call them conflicts that are within their right of way, and some of the work that they will need to do is not within their right of way, but is on city property. So there is, the engineer's estimate for the cost to the city for the city's portion, what ODOT calls unreimbursable work, so work that the city is responsible for, is just over almost $22,000. I would like to say that you guys have an option on this, but kinda don't. It's part of it, but we did want to present the agreement to council and answer any questions that you have and get approval to execute this.
Jim, okay, like you said, we have to agree to give the money if we want to have this taken care of. What I don't like is if we go over, you gotta give us some more money, but they don't say, there's no cap. I mean, for all we know, they could end up doubling the project. Oh, well, we need another $21,000 from you.
It would have to be through an approved change order, so they can't just, we're not giving them a blank check.
But if we, on the change order, they say, oh, we gotta do this, we got to. And it's gonna cost you X amount of money, and we say, well, geez, we just don't have that kind of money. What happens? They're not gonna stop the project, or if they do, halfway through, that's a big mess.
So Jim, we actually engineered this piece, and so this is our work that we proposed to ODOT, and then they gave us the paperwork to bring back to council. So in that case, if the project did exceed the work, the scope, it would have to come back through us again. They would come through Public Works and Engineering, and then it would go back to ODOT, and it would come back to council. So you would know as soon as we did that there was an issue. Does that help?
Well, I guess what I'd like to see is some sort
Not
of,
to exceed.
yeah, exactly, a cap. Say, hey, yeah, we understand you went over, it's a state project, it couldn't possibly go over, right? And it won't go past its, date that they're trying to get it done, that won't happen. But there's just nothing to stop, I'd like to see, cap it, let's see, we can go, another 10-15%, and that's it, we don't have any more. There's nothing in this contract that gives us that option.
I think I can work on that. And then,
I think the only potential problem, Jim, is the work that the city is responsible for is work that the city is responsible for. And I know that we don't like the idea that we can't put a hard cap on that, but the city's responsibility as part of this project is the city's responsibility.
if we have more than one document that ties us to that, we have an intergovernmental agreement for maintenance outside the curb line. Already with ODOT, you re-up it every 5 years or something like that. This certainly falls under that. Yeah, Tyler's correct.
Well, I do understand that, this is probably gonna happen, and we do need to give them the money. But, and I even looked through the breakdown, okay, how did they do 10% of the mobilization, 3.5% of the, temporary protection and direction of traffic, and then they're gonna pay for 2 flaggers on one day for $1,072.
Again, that's our work.
But where would let's say they find out that we need, just an example, we need 5-inch pipe instead of 4-inch pipe, so we gotta, refigure that, jump in, that's not probably gonna happen, but that's just an example. And then the price, of course, would go up, but how are they gonna break that, say, okay, we need more money because this, okay, well, that's only supposed to be 5% of the project. Where if they, go for mobilization, that it's supposed to be 10% of the project. Where do we find out what's happening until they come back and say, give us money?
Well, they would not proceed with work without the approved change order. So they can't obligate city money without having council approve it first.
Okay, I get it, it seems odd to have them say, oh, if we go over, you're gonna have to pay, and then they can't say how much they're gonna go over, but it's a big project, so.
Okay, alright, Ian.
If I may address it from a different angle, it sounds like you generated this number.
Yes.
We have, the city has.
City council.
The city has generated this number, and so I guess my question to you would be, how accurate do you think this number is? I feel like if you generated it, you probably think it's pretty accurate.
Yes, we do. We believe it's
Okay.
accurate.
I mean, if you don't foresee it going drastically over that, then great.
There are costs we are saving with this agreement.
Sure.
We're not advertising, we're not awarding, we're not bonding, we're not mowing. So there is some cost savings for the city, but Jim brings up a valid point. I don't have a good answer.
Do we have
I'll
any?
ask the question.
And then I have one more, but it's in the same vein. As I read through the contract, they have until 2027 to get this done, is that correct?
That's correct.
Prices are not gonna get lower,
That is correct.
so if they waste their, if they take their time, get the project done, these prices are gonna go up, we're gonna end up paying more money. I mean, it's just a matter of fact that things don't get cheaper. And I'm not questioning your, estimate at all. I think it's probably a great estimate, but it's an estimate for now is what I'm thinking, and the contingency in here is only $521. That doesn't really, I bet if it goes over, it's gonna go more than $521.
That's a safe bet. I take that bet.
Thank you.
Alright, Denny,
So if we approve this now, is that price locked in? That's my question.
Unless the price goes over, then we'll have a change order, yeah.
But the unit prices would not
Yeah.
increase. It would be a change in this.
It would be outside the scope, yeah.
So I think yes is the shorter answer that we can
Thank
give.
right, Ian,
In this agreement, who accepts the fit and finish of the product?
The city engineer, myself, possibly the ODOT project manager or engineer.
Okay, thank you.
okay, any other questions? Alright.
I will say, just for, so we need to do it, it's gonna cost more money that's budgeted, we're gonna have to pay it no matter what it is, because you're giving us a rough estimate now.
Correct. More or less. It is an engineer's estimate though. So I wouldn't say rough. Rough would be for me.
Only in the years from 25 to 27.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, you're right.
Another beautiful motion.
Peter, first and third.
It's written down for you, can't go wrong.
I move to approve the cooperative improvement utility agreement, OR 18B programs for Sheridan and authorize the to execute the agreement.
Good job.
Okay, any discussion on that? We discussed that already, okay. Alright, all in favor? Lucy, did you?
Please.
Okay, alright, that's unanimous, okay.
Thank you, council.
Alright, next we have page 17, the contract DRC for City of Sheridan. This one you got? Sure. Okay,
That's kind of same line.
well, that's what I thought, so.
I will let council know that Yvonne, Kai, and I think worked on all three of, any document that has any of our names on it these days has probably run through all three of those.
So the state of Oregon has certification levels that are required of cities based on how they process their water or wastewater. Sorry, Denmark. Those certifications are usually held by staff at the city or a contractor. In our case, Richard Howard was our DRC for record for the state, reporting to the state for us for about 2 years, I think, maybe a little longer. He did a great job. He retired, so this is his replacement. What is different this time around is we actually have all of our certifications with staff right now. So this gentleman and his company would be a secondary source for us, and to have them on retainer, there's a fee, a monthly fee. But we're required to have someone 24/7 to respond at the city level. We only have one person currently with some certifications. So this is our backup plan, should that person get hit by a bus, go on vacation, not be available for any other reason, this would be who we would call. They would come in, they've already toured the facility, they will be here more than once. So they have other staff as well. So this gentleman has a long history in the state of Oregon. He worked for EWEB, which is one of the larger districts in Oregon. And we think we're lucky to have him. Like I said, Richard did a fantastic job and really cleaned up a lot of things here. It helped us out with our partners at the state of Oregon. But we would like to enter an agreement with this company to foresee any future needs, if that makes sense.
And EWEB is Eugene's.
It is Liz's.
Thank you. Okay. Jim?
It says here that, Mr. Howard has retired.
Mhm.
So right now, we better get this taken care of, otherwise we're violating state laws.
We're in compliance.
Okay.
We are. This is our backup plan.
Okay, and then, so we have somebody with a level 3, that's not what we're gonna talk about.
2.
Level 2 is all you need?
So Richard was a level 3.
Okay, let's try to, okay, all right, Denny?
I just, reading this document, I just don't see where it mentions wastewater or sewer water.
And this document does not. That's a great catch. It actually, so currently we have more than one person in wastewater, and that is why.
Okay.
The certifications we have the singles in are only in water. Okay. So we have multiples in wastewater.
But it could be for wastewater or water, is that right?
Yes.
We could use this.
Yeah.
Either one.
We would have to go probably back, talk to them again, possibly,
Oh.
but yeah.
Jim?
Okay.
Oh, wait. Okay, Liz, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I have a lot of questions about this contract. First of all, so DRC stands for Direct Responsible Charge. There's 3 different tiers of pay. So would we have to, and the last tier has the DRC duties on it, I guess, for lack of a better word. Do we have to have the DRC, or do we have to go with that last tier of pay?
We are asking for number 1.
Oh, we are asking for number 1.
Just the retainer fee.
Okay, all right, and then on, the other concern I have is, yes?
Good.
Okay, the other concern I have on page 20, during an emergency situation or repairs, the city of Sheridan will provide Wyatt's Waterworks with a budget number and a dollar amount that can be spent without approval or a credit card? What is that asking in their contract?
If they were at number 3, if they were responsible for the system and operating the system, then we would have to provide them with the tools they would need to do that. That would include a budget. So they would be here in lieu of staff.
I see.
But that's not what I'm bringing to council. I'm bringing them just as a retainer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You bring up a good point. If we all got hit by a bus, the same bus, or the bus went off a cliff that had us all on it, you would be able to staff with Wyatt's. I had not considered that, but I'm glad you brought that up. You would have that ability.
Okay, so what was when the old, what was the other guy's name? I'm sorry.
Richard?
Yeah, when he was, what were we paying him? What was budgeted for the same type of contract when we were paying him?
We got a great deal with Richard. It was around for the price of option 1, except for Richard had an option to come in, so we paid portal to portal from, I think he's in the Roseburg area to here, and then we paid his overnight stay on top of his monthly retainer. So I think what was budgeted was $30,000 a year. I didn't make the budget, but I believe that's what I read.
Okay, alright, so, this information from him, this isn't a contract that we would be agreeing to, or it is, I'm still unsure on that.
It is a contract, yes.
For level one.
Okay, it's very informal, Josh and I need to turn the plant, and I would try to, okay, so, alright, it doesn't seem like a very formal contract, and so I had some questions about it.
Sue, I'm sorry. Liz, I completely understand. We're public works people. We're not attorneys.
Okay, that answered that question.
And Liz,
All right.
I confirmed that it has the important information. It says how much they're gonna charge and what they're gonna do. And a spot
Right,
to
but
sign.
it still says that it sounds like carte blanche with the credit card. I mean, that.
It would not be. It's not saying that.
Alright. Okay, I guess you answered my questions.
Okay, Jim, I think to help you, Liz, it says right there, we can give them a budget number and a dollar amount that can be spent. So right there, we cut him off. We don't need to give a credit card with carte blanche. We say, hey, we've got this much money you can spend. And that's it. You don't get to go over that. And if he needs more, he has to come back to us, but we're gonna give him a limit, is what I read. Isn't that what that says? Yeah.
Okay. Alright, thank you for clearing that up.
Okay, Ian?
You're right, this is not a very good contract, Liz.
No.
I think you're right, I think you should absolutely take a look at this, before it comes back to us, cause no matter what tier we're agreeing to, I would not want us to sign a piece of paper that had some of this stuff on here. Just a whole bunch of stuff, which I don't know if we really even need to go through, just clarifying mostly. For instance, like, how long is, if this guy spends, say we give him $10,000 to spend in an emergency, which seems pretty reasonable, and he spends $10,000, and then he's like, I need this paid tomorrow, or you're paying 100% interest. Like, it's not specified in the contract, so let's specify that kind of stuff, maybe. And then, I guess I would say, I'm ready to hire this guy for a retaining thing, if you think we should do it, but I'd like for you to tell me why we should.
We currently only have.
Specifically Kim instead of someone else. Sorry.
That's a good question.
You don't have to tell me.
We interviewed 3.
For you.
We brought the most professional company and individuals to council. The other 2 individuals, while qualified, we didn't think they would be the best representative for the city. And that's basically what we're asking, right?
Okay.
Worst case scenario is they replace staff.
Great.
So we wanted to have the most professional, educated, certified. Their location is not great, it is in Eugene, but the other people one was closer, one was farther. So, but that's why we brought this particular company, not based on their contract.
Okay, thank you.
And to address just a very narrow piece of what you brought up, and any budget that they are provided would be directly paid to third-party contractors who are doing the emergency work, not to the DRC or Wyatt's Waterworks staff directly. Those prices are those first 3 tiers. That's all that would be paid to them. It would just be their authority to contract on behalf of the city for those emergency repairs or whatever might come up.
Alright, Peter?
I just wanna make sure I'm understanding, we're only paying for tier 1 because they're just a backup, which is no DRC. So most of this contract doesn't even apply. Is that correct?
Currently, that's
Yeah,
accurate.
most of this is DRC stuff and we're not hiring for that, so we can
Correct.
just ignore every DRC item on this.
The council would have the option if needed.
Yeah, we would pretty much just have to have a separate vote to increase something else, right?
Increase to level 2 or 3.
It would be dependent on the needs of the city, I would say. The contract will be approved, including the 3 tiers, with the understanding that currently the city only requires the tier one service. I think we would strive to bring it to council if we knew that there was a reason that we would need to bump that up to the level. I don't know if we would go to tier two at any point, or if it's kind of 1 and 3 are the big ones, kind of. That's a public works question. But
I'm not saying it needs to, I just to clarify for myself.
we would strive to if we had the time, but it could be an emergency situation where we need them and we don't have time to get the pre-approval. We would certainly notify council promptly.
Very good. Well, that throws a wrench in my question. I was gonna suggest that, we put in the motion that we're approving the contract with DRC for level 1 services, with level 2 and level 3 to be considered at the time, something like that. Because we're really only wanting for level 1, but like we said, if the bus goes off the cliff, we need it. So, yes, we wanna be able to have it. Does this work that way? If we really only want it for the, level 1 services?
That's the retaining fee for services 2 and 3.
Okay.
Ultimately, we want them at tier 1 so that we can use them at tier 3 if something happens.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Council might not realize this is an insurance policy, and you've not had this before, and you've had issues with it. The city's had issues.
Well, I did meet, Mr. Howard. He seemed very knowledgeable. Sorry he retired, so.
Prior to Richard. So it was prior to Richard that we had issues, so that's what you're doing with that, yeah. Richard was our solution for that, but we didn't have one until we had Richard.
I don't say things in public sessions. Hope to use these things.
They're aware.
Okay, Liz, are you trying to raise your hand?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Are you calling on me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So Kai, what I'd like to ask you, did Richard perform DRC duties?
Yes.
With the city before?
Absolutely, yes, he did.
So why are we dropping them now? I'm really confused.
He
about
retired.
this. No, I know he retired. I'm asking on this contract, you're saying we will go for the first tier, which doesn't include DRC service duties or services.
Yeah,
So why would we drop those services now if they were used in the past?
This is kind of like an as-needed basis, Liz. If we do need DRC services in the future, because I don't think we had them like in a super steady situation in the past. It was kind of as needed with Richard, so this is as needed with this company as well. But it sounds like we're not.
We didn't have the certifications until December, January. So end of 2024, beginning of 2025.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, thank you. That clears it up a little bit.
Yeah,
All right.
I see what you're saying. Thank you.
Yep. It is a little confusing, but I move to approve the contract DRC for the city of Sheridan, Wyatt's Waterworks LLC, authorize the city manager to sign and to become effective upon the date of signing.
Second.
Okay. First and second, any more discussion? Ian?
The other thing I would say is, it seems as if, I'm not sure if Liz was asking this question or if it just made what she said made me think of it, but it's that, if we have used DRC services in the past, and we're only contracting for the retaining fee, and you're gonna have to come back to us anyway to get approval for DRC services, why are we not doing that now? It seems like we'll save money too, because we'll not be paying the $350 tier 1, just the $600. And I mean, how often do we use these DRC services, I guess?
We will not be using them, as long as we have staff that's certified. And currently we have staff that's certified.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
But it's my understanding too, Ian, to answer that question, that having Wyatt's Waterworks on the tier 1 basis allows them to become familiar with our system such that they could, in a pinch, be ready to act as DRC. Whereas if we didn't have any contract with them, they wouldn't be available as quickly. Potentially we'd be in a bad situation.
That's very
Okay,
Okay.
any other questions? Okay, alright, we'll go ahead and call for a vote then, all in favor? Liz, are you raising your hand?
No, I'm abstaining. I'm
Okay,
not contract.
okay, so that's 5.
To 0.
Lucy, did you raise your hand?
Yep.
Okay, so 5 and then 1 abstaining. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, alright, moving on, Yvonne, any public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, alright, we can move on to mayor, councilor discussion. Anybody have anything or wanna go first? Denny, go ahead.
The Orchard Street Park property, the 10 acres, has the previous party been told not to trespass that part apart? And also, I kind of would like to see no trespassing signs, or I went out to today, somebody had been in there, I don't know who, maybe somebody just drove up there and rode back. There's some new ruts and stuff, I just don't want this gentleman to be farming this.
Yeah, and I understood the direction from completely.
Okay.
I am a little perplexed how to perform it. But we are working on that. I have an idea of how we're going to do that. But I have attempted to open up dialogue to see what their intent is, and I've been unsuccessful. So I'm gonna do, it's gonna be a 2-step process for me, just so council knows, I'll sign it. It is public property, however, so that's where it gets difficult, and I'll need some help from Tyler. And then I plan on contacting the individual that planted the crop to see what their intent is.
Well, with no contract, it's,
I have been assured that we are 100% okay in that regard. But that doesn't mean we're out of the woods to me, because I don't know what the other party intends. I'm worried about that part. I just wanna make sure, that there's an understanding. Does that make sense?
yeah, sort of, but it just strikes me as maybe somebody wants to go plant a crop in the city park.
I agree. It seems odd that I have to go through
Yeah,
this
yeah.
procedure. But I can't just put up no trespassing sign because it's public property. But I think I have a way around that.
Okay.
That's enforceable. Tyler says that they're out of contract. So yeah, I think with the new signage and with Tyler's direction, I think we'll be okay. But I still plan on reaching out just to see what they intend to do. Yeah.
We're striving to be strategic, in a, let's call it a sensitive situation.
But thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Can you just camp up there for us, Danny?
Pardon me?
Can you just camp up there for us?
I would love to.
Alright, Ian,
Relating to that, is there an access that is being used primarily to this property by anyone? It's not, I mean, this property, it is public property and therefore, accessible to the public, however, some sort of rules apply to this property's use, right? And so I'm wondering, the city decides for many reasons to put in, say, a post in concrete. Why, is that a possibility or something? Anyway, I'm sure you're thinking of all these things.
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so.
Maybe, I don't know if that would help. I've seen the property drawings.
great, Denny.
A year or so ago, council discussed maybe seeing if the solar company would want to lease or buy that property. Has any more been done with that? It's perfect for them if they're interested, it's right with all their other solar stuff.
I've not been aware of that.
Yeah, it was discussed before this lease program.
Yeah.
In effect.
I think that's why we had it year to year, is because we thought that they may want to, by maybe the first lease, they weren't ready or something, I can't remember the exact.
Kai and I will
But yeah, I think that'd be good to look
follow
at.
up on that. I don't know if we know where that ended previously.
Liz, are you trying to raise your hand?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Kai, what is the follow-up on the cement work done on Bridge Street, the bump out where it was really shoddy work? Did they improve it when they did the finished work?
Great question, Liz. We have provided them with a punch list. We did an inspection, I think it was last Wednesday. Provided that to the contractor, and we are meeting their subcontractor and the general contractor Wednesday on site to discuss.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I got, just three things. The first was really, can we, put Gary's presentation online with the rest of the.
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. Next one, comes to me from, Hometown Days. This is real early, but, they wanted to check and make sure that the city will continue to pay for the porta potties, which has been the practice. Can we say yet that we will, or is that something that we take more time?
June.
Yeah, they're starting.
It's this budget year.
So they're starting now to make sure that, everything, all the I's and T's, whatever. So that question came to me, whether we know that we're gonna pay for the porta potties, which we have in the past.
I assumed that it was included in the budget.
Okay.
We can find out. Did they have a number?
I do not have a number.
Okay, we can find that out.
Okay, we give that back to them then.
It's
And then-
Matt, right?
Yeah.
And the final one is just, again, information passed to me that, on Southwest Madison Street between First and Second, let's see if I got it right, the north side of the street is sinking, and I was told that, it does look like, the city did some work on that, and there's no curb there, and it's just sinking down.
Madison.
Yeah, Southwest Madison between First and Second. And then, also, on the south side of the street, it's becoming fairly broken up, which we probably aware of that. And then, on, Harrison Street between, Third and Mill, huge potholes. I think the quote was, moon crater size potholes.
Oh, is that the real short?
We call those speed divots.
Is that the real short street?
That sounds correct, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And, so yeah, those.
Right, so I got Southwest Madison sinking,
Mhm.
and then what was the one after that? That was the same street, but a different section?
No, Harrison Street between,
Road before Harrison, you said something about there was another road that
oh,
was broken
basically
down.
Madison Street between First and Second.
South side of Madison Street.
And then, yeah, each side is doing something different. The north side is sinking, the, south side is just breaking up. And then on Harrison Street between, Third and Mill, it's got huge potholes. So
It's
the
like
divots.
It's like that one house has a street and it's a stop sign.
Yeah.
Are these public comments?
Yes, they were addressed to me to see if I would bring them up. I thought, well, now's the appropriate time.
As I say, I think we have a pothole report available online as well.
Okay, I can pass back to, hey,
Yeah,
go on.
absolutely, them coming to you and you bringing it here is 100% okay,
Okay,
of course. But if you would,
I will.
yeah, pass that out, because I think that's easier to use, probably.
Sure.
Probably.
And in fairness,
It's that
hopefully,
way, that's good.
anyone who's watching the meeting tonight, oh, is that why I do that? Great.
Yeah, we just did a pothole list, so hopefully somebody knows that.
Okay, that's all I have, is those three things.
Okay,
Thanks, Jim.
Sure. Thank you.
And would you thank those citizens as well?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
okay, anything else? Okay.
I have a question.
1 second, Ian,
Sorry.
you wanna go?
Please, go ahead.
first? Okay, go ahead, Lucy.
I was just wondering if there was any update on the truck,
No,
and how long are we looking at something in regards to getting an update on that?
we'll get an update when we have an update. We're working on it.
Like,
That said, what I can tell you.
Okay, Ian,
I'm glad Liz asked the question about the sidewalks. I took another look at them, realized that nothing had been done because it's probably the process time and everything. that's fine. But I took another look at them, and I was pretty surprised at a fair number of things that I hadn't noticed before. And I showed some pictures to some friends that are contractors as well. And all of them were like, how the hell do I get the next contract in Sheridan? Because this is highway robbery. And I am inclined to agree. And so I would like to see portions of that concrete completely removed and replaced, for them to get their final portion of the money. That would be my opinion to the council. I think some of this work is beyond shoddy, and I don't think Sheridan should stand for it, especially with the prices that we're paying.
I agree.
And that process has started. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Yvonne. I'm sure you're doing most of it.
Okay, anything else? Okay, Danny?
I moved that we adjourn this meeting.
Okay,
Second.
okay, first and second, all in favor? Okay, we're adjourned, it's 9:16.
Thank you. Good meeting, everybody.
Recording stopped.